trees. Just as the sun was setting, they led her into a little clearing. There, tucked away, was a tiny, charming cottage. She knocked on the little door, but no one answered. The door creaked open, so she peeked inside. The cottage was a mess, but everything inside was tiny. There was a little table with 7 little chairs, 7 dirty little plates, and 7 tiny cups. Snow White thought some children must live there, and her kind heart took over. She figured that if she cleaned up their home, maybe they would let her stay. So, with some help from her new animal friends, she washed the dishes, swept the floor, and tidied the whole cottage till it sparkled. Upstairs she found 7 little beds. Completely exhausted, Snow White laid down across a few of the tiny beds and fell fast asleep. Later that evening, the 7 dwarfs returned home from a long day of working in the jewel mines. They were shocked to find their cottage sparkling clean and a beautiful princess asleep in their beds. When Snow White woke up, she was startled, but the dwarfs were friendly. She told them her whole story about the jealous queen. The dwarfs felt so sorry for her. Happy said, "You can stay with us." And Doc added, "Yes, yes. If you'll help us cook and clean, you'll be safe here." Grumpy just folded his arms and huffed, "She'll be nothing but trouble." But the others could tell he was already growing fond of her. So Snow White made a new home with her 7 new friends. Every morning they would go off to the mines, but not without warning her, "Be careful. Don't let any strangers in the house." Meanwhile, back at the castle, the evil queen was certain Snow White was gone. She strode to her mirror once more. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all? Over the hills, where the 7 dwarfs dwell, Snow White is still alive and well, and she is still 1,000 times fairer than you." The queen shrieked with fury. She had been tricked. Now she would have to deal with Snow White herself. Using her dark magic, she went to a secret room and came up with a terrible plan. She disguised herself as an old, hunched-over peddler woman. Then she created her most wicked invention, a beautiful, shiny red apple. One side was perfectly fine to eat, but the other half was filled with a poison that would cause a deep, death-like sleep. Disguised as the old woman, the queen traveled to the dwarf's cottage. She found Snow White outside, singing with her animal friends. "Hello, my dear. Would you like a lovely apple? The shiniest, most delicious apple in the land." Snow White remembered the dwarf's warning and was cautious. "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers," she said politely. "Oh, but such a pretty girl deserves a pretty apple," the old woman wheezed, holding out the glistening fruit. "Look, there's nothing to fear. I'll take a bite myself." The queen took a big bite from the safe green side of the apple. Seeing this, Snow White thought it must be okay. The apple looked so delicious, and the old woman seemed harmless enough. She took the apple and, wanting to be polite, took a small bite from the poisoned red side. The moment she did, the magic took over. Snow White's eyes closed. The apple fell from her hand, and she sank to the floor in a deep, magical sleep. The evil queen cackled, her plan a complete success. "Now I am the fairest of them all," she shrieked. When the 7 dwarfs came home that evening, they found Snow White lying motionless on the floor. They were heartbroken. They tried everything to wake her, calling her name and shaking her gently, but nothing worked. Weeping for their friend, they noticed how beautiful she still was, even in her enchanted sleep. They couldn't bear the thought of burying her in the cold ground, so they built a beautiful coffin out of glass, so they could always look at her peaceful face. They placed it in a sunny spot in the forest and took turns watching over her day and night, hoping for a miracle.